Welcome to episode 11 of the Harsch Review, a film and TV podcast. My name is Sean, and with me is my brother Ryan. Ryan, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How's everybody doing out there?
Oh man, what a week it's been. Watched a lot of movies, a lot of good things, and we'll get to those in our next episode. This one is going to be all about our favorite comedies of all time. Are you excited?
Very excited. I'm interested to see what your picks are and if any of them are coincidental with mine.
Yeah, I know. I figured we'd kind of start this one off a little different than some of our episodes in the past. And, you know, growing up together, I think that we have a lot of similar likes and tastes in movies. But there's also a huge diversity between the kind of stuff we're drawn to. But I think comedy is one of the few genres that we're pretty aligned on. And so I'm just kind of curious, thought we'd have a little bit of discussion about what do you think are some of the things that maybe shaped your sense of humor, some of the earlier memories that you had kind of growing up, and what were some of the influences that kind of determined what comedic path and things that you'd be drawn to growing up were and things like that. So, throwing it out there, is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, I think if you ask anybody this question, you could really learn a lot about them. So I don't know if this is going to be a harsh review dating advice, but if you really want to know a lot about somebody and their comic and humorous sensitivities, you want to go with like what movies they like or what stand-up comedians they like. I think one of my earliest memories was Steve Martin, and it was his stand-up. I remember that our parents had a tape, or maybe it was an 8-track of Steve Martin going in the car, and I was pretty young, but I do remember that, and I thought it was hilarious. I mean, I didn't really know what he was talking about, but I knew it was really silly and kind of off the wall.
Yeah, his delivery kind of captured you a little bit, huh?
Yeah, and then later on, growing up, it was George Carlin, Richard Pryor they had specials on television, so I was drawn to those too, and more so for like the explicit language and the racy commentary. Didn't really learn to appreciate that kind of stuff until I got a lot older.
Yeah, Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and as far as like comedic acting goes, I think one of the first comedic actors I really got into was Eddie Murphy.
Oh yes, Eddie Murphy.
His 80s movies are just so funny.
And that's funny you mentioned the stand-up comedic influence that clearly spills over into the comedy movies. And while I know you're a few years older than me, and I don't have as many clear memories in regards to stand-up comedians, I do know that their presence was around. But for me, this is a little bit more of a personal insight. We had a dad who wasn't around much, but what he did leave behind were a lot of kick-ass movies that we probably shouldn't have been watching at our age.
Oh yeah,
and so instantly, I think through watching a lot of those movies, which I'm willing to bet a few of them are going to bleed into our list that we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Definitely,
that's kind of what started, I think, my sense of humor and the types of things I was drawn to. Maybe a little bit more than what a 5-year-old kid should be watching. But at the time, I didn't really know, and they're really funny. But much like you said, in hindsight, watching those movies as you're older, you're kind of like, well, I should have not been watching this. As a kid.
More into like the sight gags, but we didn't really see, because a lot of these things, they have a lot of levels to them. So, you'll have the sight gags and just the funny looking stuff, but then you'll have other deeper messages. But then, of course, there's language kind of pervading in the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the 80s, 70s, and 80s were a little less politically correct than now, I think. So, it's kind of a good thing. Some of the movies that were made in the 70s and 80s, which we may talk about, you really couldn't remake those today. Keeping those intact.
Culture was a lot different to where you could infuse a little bit more. Maybe you saw movies with more sexism and racism and raunchier topics and things discussed. People were given a lot more. I wouldn't say creative freedom, but there was not as regulated and not as sensitive of who you might offend. And so on one side that led to some pretty good comedy, but on the other side, a lot of things didn't age well because they ended up being too much on the offensive.
Yeah, and then some things just didn't age well. Period. I mean, can't really think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure if I went back and watched them now, they just wouldn't be that funny in hindsight.
Yeah, I think majority of comedies don't age well, and I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so
I think it depends on where you are in your life and kind of the memories you have attached to them.
That's true, because if you were connected to something, then clearly you're going to be fond of that. But somebody, if I were to go into a comedy from the 70s or from the 80s that I haven't seen, it's probably not going to connect unless it's a very good comedic performance. Now, what do you remember what the first comedy movie in the movie theaters was? I remember what mine was, but I don't know if it was the same as yours.
Like the ones we saw?
Yeah, like when's the first time you went to the movie theater and actually saw a comedy that you can remember?
I don't remember. I mean, I remember more of the other. I remember like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, but comedies, I'd really have to search for that. Honestly, I mean,
I've got one then. Okay, so let me know if you recall this. Now, we grew up in a mountain community of several hundred people. There was not a movie theater anywhere where we live. So if you're gonna go see the movies, you really had to travel far. And most of the time, there's a huge reliance on the VHS. So on the other side of the mountain, probably an hour drive, there's this dumpy old movie theater, and we went and saw a double feature.
I remember.
You remember now?
Yeah, I do.
So what was the first movie?
We had Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yep, and
Twins.
Yep, that's exactly it. So I knew you So I just remember that being the first time I actually went to it might even been like one of the very early memories of seeing certain films at the time of release, or I don't know.
And that's back when you had like double features, because I think it truly was a double feature.
It was.
We watched a movie and then walked into another theater. It was like movie ended, you got a 5-minute break, and then they started up Twins.
And I remember I was pumped for Twins and didn't care about Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Right.
When you may have been the other way around, I don't know. I think Dirty Rotten Scoundrels isn't a movie that a 6 or 7-year-old kid's going to care about, but Twins was funny at the time.
At the time.
Yeah, that didn't hold up now.
Not now.
No, not at all.
No.
So that was just something I thought was kind of funny. So speaking of going to the movies and seeing those, for me, I don't know. I love comedy movies, but I don't really enjoy going to the theater and watching a comedy. I used to a lot more when I was younger, but I think the older I got, the price and hassle of going to the theater sometimes just was not worth it for a comedy because they're so hit or miss. And I felt like comedies over time have continued to get worse and worse and worse. And then they switched to more of a reliance on funny scenarios, trying to have a funny script, but what lacks is a good comedic performance. So
like a bunch of sketches kind of interlaced together.
If a funny movie
cohesive sense of humor throughout.
Correct. So like, for example, there's a lot of movies you can think of that as just one funny scenario from one to the next to the next to the next. But what's not carrying that whole scenario is a good comedian, somebody who really knows how to capture the camera and the audience attention. So like an example would be like a movie like Super Troopers. I saw that movie long after it came out, and I've heard lots of great things about it. It's funny, and I just didn't like it. And I just felt like it was cheap humor. Because for me, I can acknowledge where the humor was and how things were kind of funny. I just didn't connect with any of the actors doing that. I didn't feel like it was a good comedic performance by anyone's part. It was just clever writing, clever scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think it was like an ensemble type thing, or I mean,
yeah, I just.
Do we always need to have that like one or two funny people, or is it? Do you think an ensemble works as well, or no?
No, ensembles can work well, providing that people aren't competing for screen time.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a known comic or things like that. I think this even applies to movies like Office Space, which, and it's right. And I think it's a funny movie, but it doesn't hold up to me beyond the lines of the bits. Like, people are quoting the movie. They're not necessarily paying a nod to, in my opinion, to the actor or actress delivering those lines. Where
just more of the context and
you could take those lines and put a lot of different people in that role and they could execute it. Sure. But you look at a movie like, let's say, Mrs. Doubtfire. I can't think of anybody else other than Robin Williams truly doing a movie like that.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the difference. So personally, I'm just more drawn towards comedies that have a stronger foundation with a comic compared to ones that are just very clever written or might be scenario or parody based.
Sure.
So I don't know if you share that that same.
I think kind of. I mean, if I wanted to go to see a comedy film in the movies, in the actual theaters now, I'd really have to. I mean, I want to go the opening night, obviously, but I'd really have to kind of wait for word of mouth, see if it was good. Because honestly, like the last comedies I've seen in the last 10 years that I chose to go to, I mean, I was laughing the entire time, honestly. I mean, so I think I picked some good ones, but yeah, definitely it's deteriorated. I think some stuff's become a lot more safe. So there's not as much, like kind of risque stuff going on. Or, someone kind of breaks the mold, like, let's say, like a Superbad type of movie. And then everyone else is kind of endlessly imitating it afterwards in one form or another. So.
That's a good call out, because it was that is one of those ones where initially you look at it, I personally would have categorized it with like the Super Troopers or the Office Spaces, where it was more about the writing and the situations. But I really felt like those roles were written for those particular people and how they deliver the lines. Yeah. And I think that's why that movie works.
Yeah. Yeah. It works pretty well. And when it came out, it was like, really nothing like it. Yeah. I mean, a kind of a callback to older comedies, maybe. I think it felt a little bit nostalgic in that sense. Kind of like John Hughes mixed with the Farrelly Brothers a little bit. I enjoyed that when it came out, but it's like, then you've seen 20 other movies that are kind of picking up on the same premise. And if you're a discerning viewer like us, you really pick up on that. True.
That's true. And I think that works. Now, what are your thoughts on like parody movies?
Like give me an example of a current one, maybe.
Okay.
I'm thinking like Airplane, Naked Gun.
Sure. So last week, the folks over at the Not for Human Consumption podcast, which are good friends of mine, they were kind enough to have me on and discuss some movies with them, because they've got a guy named Dylan on their show. He's also known as what's the name? Pocket Wolf is his nickname.
Nice.
And Dylan's great. But the funny thing about him is he reminds me of Brendan Fraser from that movie Blast from the Past, where he was raised in like a bunker. And then, came out when he was like in his 20s and saw all these advancements in modern society and stuff, because they thought that the world had blown up during, I think, World War II. Well, his version of that is he hasn't seen anything. For some reason, he's made it through several decades in life and haven't watched any movies. So his friends over at the NFHC podcast
have him on as a guest anytime soon.
Well, if we talk about wrestling or any Jim Carrey movie from the 90s, yes, we would have Dylan on. But outside of that, we're gonna have to come back in a couple years once Alan, David, and Matt make him watch enough movies. So but anyways, they have him watch classic movies that everybody should have seen. And then he has to give their review. So he watched Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time last week.
Wow.
And that's why they had me on to kind of discuss it with him. So
what's his excuse?
That's my point, is you'd think he lived in a bunker this whole, I don't know that level of detail. I think he was either maybe Dylan grew up in some like podunk Arizona village. I have no idea. Yeah, it's possible. Somehow
not to disrespect the Amish.
Yeah, somehow he's made it that far. So it leads to a lot of entertaining discussion amongst many things. So anyways, plug for the team over there. If you're interested, check out nfhcpodcast.com. It's a show about everything and nothing. And if you like some good humor, go over there and check it out. Every week they do something new. They did like Lethal Weapon. They had them watch Predator, Ghostbusters, Fifth Element, you name it. Anyways,
nice. The classics.
Yeah. So one of the ones that he called out that he really loved was Walk Hard. And
yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I'm mixed on it because I remember enjoying it the first time I saw it because it was pretty close after Walk the Line. But it recently popped up on Netflix and it just didn't stick with me when I watched it again. I was like, well, what happened? I remember really liking this movie, but it didn't hold up. And it kind of felt like some of those Police Academy, even like Naked Gun, loaded Weapon, those kind of parodies. So
like that's a different kind of parody movie because I think it pulls from a lot of different types. I'd put that in a category of like a Spinal Tap where it pulls from different things. So It's not like strictly a parody. When Airplane came out, like if we watched it when you were young, you'd have no context, but they made a lot of movies in the 70s and TV movies in the 70s about like airplane disasters. So that's kind of where that was coming from.
Okay.
I don't know though. I mean, I could take that stuff in limited doses, but yeah, you're right. I don't think they hold up particularly.
Yeah. Some of the performances and the music and stuff were really good, but I was kind of curious what you thought about that one. It was a fun discussion with
I like that one
with the guys over there.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to set the stage a little bit for some of the, my thoughts on just comedies in general. I mean, I have a lot of fond memories of watching really good comedies in the theater. I know that you do as well. What do you think was, when you maybe something that really struck with you as kind of like, okay, this is going to be a classic when you saw it?
Does it have to be something from our list or?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It could be okay to bring it forward.
I thought when I saw Team America.
Oh.
Yeah, I was literally hurting when it came out,
Sure.
I mean, I still watch it to this day and it's so funny. It's silly, but it also has a lot of like social commentary in it. So it works on different levels, but a movie like that or Something About Mary.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And that's a movie where like everybody's laughing. So it's like you really kind of share a moment with the audience. Whereas, if you're watching a drama, you don't really know what everybody's thinking or how they're responding to it unless they get up and walk out.
That's true.
With
true.
a comedy, it's like you have this kind of shared experience with the people that are in that theater, different levels of humor, and, you get to see how everybody's responding to it right then. So I think those two movies for me, when I saw them in the theaters, I was like, this is something different. I'm going to remember this. And I mean, honestly, they still hold up.
Yeah. I saw Team America, I believe in Berkeley, with my friend Brian at the time. And I think we just kind of went in and said, hey, let's go see this movie. We know that the
bunch of puppets.
We didn't really know what to expect. And it was a rad experience. But I was always kind of
great.
Yeah. I remember some of those ones were going to the theaters with some of my friends and seeing things like, Tommy Boy and Happy Gilmore and a lot of the movie from the SNL alum of the early 90s. I mean, even things like Wayne's World and stuff like that. Those are always like a lot of fun going and seeing when you're in like your teenage, early 20s years. But
there were a lot of those too, those SNL type movies.
Oh yeah. Adam Sandler was killing it for a long time.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you name it. The Jim Carrey had a huge catalog that was working for a while.
Yeah.
So, Dylan would support that. And
sure.
So, but a lot of those have
Pocket Wolf.
Yeah, Pocket Wolf. A lot of those have kind of
Pocket Coyote.
A lot of those have worn off, in my opinion. Either I'm just getting older and grumpier, but I do sense an absence of really good comedians, and I think that maybe the Judd Apatow gang and the folks associated with him is kind of more the modern collection of guys that are putting out funny shows, but they seem to be very dependent on an ensemble. You don't really see a single lead. I mean, maybe I'm drawing a blank and there's tons out there. So please let me know. I'd love to know. But anyways, enough of the free discussion. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, so let me set the stage before we kick it off.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about our favorite movies and TV comedies of all time. Brian's got his list. I don't know what's on his. I've got my list. He doesn't know what's on mine. But I'm willing to bet that they're pretty much, there's going to be a 70% overlap, 60% overlap between the two of ours. And I want us to walk away with a collective top 10, preferably in a 1 through 10 order. But if we get into it and it's a total shit show, then we'll just settle on a top 10. And then for TV shows, we'll settle on a top 5, just because I think that that's a little bit more of a conservative field. There's not as many. While there's so many really good TV shows, I think it would be a better discussion if we focus on the top 5.
Okay. Yeah.
So in no particular order, we're going to kick it off and we're going to go through them. We're going to talk a little bit about what we love about the movies and see what you have, and also kind of share some of the ones that you guys shared with us that you enjoyed. And once we go through our lists, we're going to hash it out and see what we come up with. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Favorite comedies of all time.
Okay, I'll kick it off. I'm going to kick it off here.
All right.
And I'm going to throw one out there that I recently watched, and it is called Cable Guy. I think it's pretty close to being one of Jim Carrey's best, top 3 in my opinion, because I think it shows the range of his character. Is that one that you have on your top list?
It's not, but I would have to agree with you. I really like his performance. It's very dark. Ben Stiller directed this.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, which I really like this movie.
Yeah,
and it still holds up, by the way.
It does. It's full of a lot of references. So if you're a fan of movies and TV shows, it's fun to try to pick out those references. For me, another reason why I kind of like it is because it shows Jim Carrey's manic approach to comedy and his range, which is kind of a good, ensemble of his various talents, kind of seeing him as a young comic and a stand-up, and he gets to kind of display a lot more of his impressions in this movie. That when he's playing characters like an Ace Ventura, which I still think it's funny, I don't think it's as good as a comedic performance compared to something like Cable Guy.
Right, and stuff like Ace Ventura, like that's kind of shtick. It gets a little old after a while. It is funny. But the second Ace Ventura, like the funniest thing to me in that was when he was coming out of the rhino's ass.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it, and like the Monopoly guy thing. But with Cable Guy, it's a lot more nuanced. Like I said, it's definitely darker. And I enjoy it.
Nice,
good pick.
All right, Cable Guy.
Yeah,
you're up.
All right, I got one for you. Tropic Thunder.
Ooh, yes, that is on my list as well.
Okay. Well, Tropic Thunder to me is, again, like Something About Mary, one of those movies where I was just laughing constantly in the theater. Written by Justin Theroux, who, if you've seen The Leftovers, you wouldn't really think that he's capable of being this funny, but it's a hilarious movie. Ben Stiller, again, directed it. He stars in it. Jack Black's in it. Danny McBride is in it. Robert Downey Jr. is in it, and a very kind of a brave choice for him. I think the movie succeeds on a lot of different levels. Obviously, it is kind of a parody in the sense that it's making fun of certain like war movies. So definitely Platoon, Apocalypse Now, a lot of silly stuff, but then it has a lot of really like a commentary on Hollywood that I don't know if everybody would get, in terms of, just the budgeting of movies and how the public perceives certain things. So it's very smart, but it also succeeds in being very funny where you don't have to really think about it too much.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I have it down for many of the same reasons. I think that it's probably one of the best comedies to come out in the last 15 years or so.
I agree.
And it instantly sets the tone right away with the parody commercials and sets up the characters. It starts strong, and it maintains that through there. through the whole movie. And it's also one of the ones I think that shows Ben Stiller's talent, where he works best, in my opinion, playing off a good ensemble cast where, you could think of movies like Dodgeball, where the overall movie isn't that strong, but when he's on camera and he's working with other people, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But there's a
lot
of
this movie goes.
Exactly. There's a lot of kind of reminds me of how you mentioned earlier was like the Team America-esque type of humor where you're making fun of a lot of things that are just kind of borderline offensive, but it's semi-respectful enough to where if you have a good comedic sense of humor, you can appreciate for what it is. I think the weakest
Tom
part
Cruise is great in this movie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think he was the weakest link, which shows you how strong it is. And the only reason I say that is because there was a little bit of a PR campaign behind him being in this movie. That was he still did a great job. He stepped up to the plate, but there was a little bit of image damage control, and they wanted to kind of get him in a good role, and this worked out for him, so they took advantage of it. I think he played the part well, but for him, I think it was a little bit more of a strategic move to repair his image. So, Tropic Thunder, good pick.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me mark that off. Boom. All right. Okay, so this one I'm going to call out, which I think is probably going to be the oldest movie on either of our lists.
Okay.
And this is
a
one
silent film.
Not that old. I got this as a gift when I was maybe 1988, 89 on VHS for a birthday, and that would be Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Is that in your top?
That was on my list.
See, we're you could tell we're related.
Yeah. I saw this in the theater recently too, and it was amazing.
So typically, a lot of British humor is going to be hit or miss with folks in the States. And for me, when I watched this, I didn't really have a good foundation of the different styles of humor to really know, like, oh, this is a British comedy or this is an American comedy. I just remember that it was silly as hell, and there's a lot of very clever dialogue that was acted very deadpan and very. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really aligned with my type of sense of humor, which is that same kind of way. And every time I keep watching, I keep picking away certain things that I just didn't catch before. I don't know.
Sure.
I think it's a rad movie. You're either gonna love it, or you're gonna hate it. You're not really finding anybody in the middle on this one, in my opinion.
I like how all the characters. There's really like 6 or 7 guys in that comedy troupe, but throughout the whole movie, they're all playing every single role. Some of them are playing women, and that's funny because they just kind of hike their voice up a little bit. It's just, I love it. It's hilarious. It's so funny.
And there's a lot of various scenarios where some of the back and forth kind of get a little long winded, and that's what kind of makes it work. It's very simple. There's a lot of goofiness in there, and I just remember being very innocent and seeing that one, not really knowing any of these actors and the situations. I mean, everything from the opening and the end credits and the content within. There's not much to hate about this one, other than if it's not your flavor of comedy, most people aren't going to like it, I think, unless they had some kind of connection to it when it was a little bit more contemporary or relevant back in the 80s.
It's very, very silly, so you really have to kind of appreciate the absurd, I think, to get into this movie.
And it's also one that is a good ensemble performance, to where, because they're playing characters and there's a lot of dress up and just the quality of a movie from that era. You don't really personalize the comedic performances as much, so you're kind of more of an open book. Do
you have a favorite member of the?
No, I just remember there's a line that goes, "Oh, he must be a king." Well, how do you know?
Yeah,
he ain't got shit all over him.
How do you know that? He ain't got shit all over him.
yeah. Just a lot of these dumb little lines like that.
Yeah.
The various scenarios.
Right.
He turned me into a newt.
Yeah.
I got better. So, yeah, that one's great.
Yeah.
Okay, batter up.
All right. I'll throw this one out early in the ring. The Big Lebowski.
That definitely has to be on here.
Yeah.
I know you love this one.
It's one of my favorites.
Why?
I mean, the first time I saw it in the theater, I didn't know what to think of it. Honestly, I mean, I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. It was just kind of a really off the wall type of movie. And then you go back and watch it, and it's so funny. There's John Goodman really makes this movie to me. I mean, Jeff Bridges is kind of playing himself. If you know anything about him in real life, that's kind of how he is. I mean, he brought his own clothes to play that character. But John Goodman, they wrote the role for him. The Coen brothers wrote it for him. So with him in mind, I mean, he kind of makes the movie in a lot of scenes for me. It's very quotable. A lot of lines stick out. I can just watch this movie over and over. I think it's wonderful. I think they put it out like right after Fargo, because Fargo is, even though it is kind of funny in a lot of unintentional ways, it is kind of dark. So I think the Coens in response just came up with this Lebowski movie and threw it out there, and now it's got like a huge cult following. It's highly referenced in all kinds of places. One of my favorite comedies. Works as a good suspense movie too, but it's mainly a comedy.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's one of those movies that is a very intelligent comedy, because you have to kind of see beyond what's happening on screen or the moments they're doing, and just appreciate the humor even in sadness. And I think the perfect example of that in that movie is where they've got Donnie's ashes in the coffee can, and they're down at the beach or on the cliffs, and he opens the whole thing up and he's kind of shaking it out, and the ashes just go over his face, and it's kind of sad, but at the same time it's like, of course, and then they kind of embrace. So it's just that type of humor. It's really hard to pull off in a situation, like to make something that's sad to these characters funny,
kind of bittersweet. But it's like you spend a lot of time with these two characters. I mean, the movie's really about kind of their friendship too, and how one's like a pacifist, the other one's like gun nut, and how they both kind of get along. And I mean, they're the most unlikely pair, but I mean, those two, every time they're on screen, it's just great.
No, absolutely. All right, Big Lebowski.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah, I've got that on mine as well. So good pick.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. Here's another one that I think you're gonna have on your list, and that would be The Original Vacation.
Oh yeah, that's on my list.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about this movie. I just love it. I think that there's so many things about the movie to like. For as much of an asshole that people say Chevy Chase is, I think he's on top of his game. It's him at his best. I think it's the single best movie he did. The not only are there funny scenarios, but the dialogue and the comedic performances are great. Randy Quaid is awesome in it, and John Candy even has a pretty funny role in the movie. And there's a lot of kind of raunchier scenarios or sad things in there that kind of show Clark Griswold just determined to get his family to Wally World
at any cost.
At any cost. And I think this is one of the first comedies that really kind of struck with me at a younger age, seeing it and just really like kind of loving it.
Yeah.
Even
we had this on tape as well.
We
have
did
a TV edited version, or do we have the HBO version?
We had the original. So
okay,
once we saw it on TV, the noticeable other than like the lack of nudity and various language and stuff in the movie, there's that scene where Clark is kind of like in the, I don't know, Chicago or something, and he pulls out and he asks some pimps like, "Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the expressway?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Go fuck your mama." Right. Yeah. And so
he's at East St. Louis.
Yeah. But the TV version was like, "Can you tell me how to get to the expressway?" He's like, "Who do you think I am? Christopher Columbo?" I don't know.
Right.
It's the dumbest line. But
you could tell it's one of those funny TV edits where it just doesn't fit,
Not at all. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I remember. Thank you very much.
I remember as a sprightly 8-year-old in the movie.
Yeah.
Watching that.
I know.
Yeah, good pick. Do you know who wrote and directed this?
Oh, I should know this.
Yeah.
Cut me out. It's like a Landis type movie. But I
It's,
know that's not him.
Well, Harold Ramis directed it.
Ramis, yes. Okay.
And John Hughes wrote it. And John Hughes went on to write.
That's what I was thinking.
And direct a whole bunch of great movies.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, it was one of his earlier ones, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old Hughes.
Yeah, good pick.
Yeah,
we're finding a lot.
Likewise,
tonight,
that's why I say I'm said 70%. All right, what do you got?
All right, well, I'll follow in the same vein. I got another John Hughes film here. It's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Okay. So this was on my list, but it got bumped. But tell me why you love this one.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best, and this is another one we watched when we were kids.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a whole hour of footage that got cut from this movie. That's a whole lot raunchier. That obviously didn't end up in the movie, and it's just sitting in a safe somewhere. So I'm really hoping that's like the holy grail of comedies if they release that with the whole movie. I think this is probably Steve Martin's best movie. Maybe second to The Jerk, but I think it's one of his best movies. I think it's definitely John Candy's best movie.
Yeah.
And, throughout the movie, there's a little sadness at the end, but the scenarios in the movie are really funny. It kind of sets a template for a lot of those road comedies that came out later.
Yeah. Black Sheep.
Yeah. Well, like I think
Tommy
Due Date,
Boy,
that movie that came out.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Dumb and Dumber. I mean, there's just like, it kind of sets the tone for all those movies. Yeah, but very funny, still holds up. I love it. And it's also a good movie to watch around Thanksgiving too.
Yeah, that is a that is a good one, and the reason why I kind of bumped it off the list a little bit because I think there are a lot of somber tones throughout the movie, and you feel a lot of sorrow for the characters, and that's part of to their credit for how well they are performing. Yeah. Where you don't necessarily expect Steve Martin to make you actually sad that he's not home for the holidays.
Sure,
but you also feel sad that John Candy's character really doesn't have a whole lot going on.
Yeah, he's kind of bumping around selling shower
rings. I think it's the pace of the movie for me that makes it a little bit hard for how it ages. But I think it's great. It's well crafted. It's definitely entertaining. It is on my my secondary list. I didn't quite break the top 10 for me.
Yeah.
All right, good one.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull out one here that I definitely think needs to be in the top 10, and that is Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
So we
not on my list, but I do like it.
We mentioned it a couple times. We know that we know how Dylan from the NFHC podcast feels. We've got a couple other call outs, I think, for that one. Lee, he has a from the movie show on Twitter at 8-bit heroes, 8BT heroes. He thinks best of all time, Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
Very very sharp script for a comedy about two dumb guys, and a close second for him was Step Brothers. And I think that he said it very well, where the joke to minute ratio is phenomenal and it's very funny. And so I would agree definitely with his sentiment there that Dumb and Dumber for me is Jim Carrey's best. I think it's great to see somebody like Jeff Daniels with his performance, and it's just very well written to where
at times he's almost funnier than Jim Carrey to me.
Yeah, which is crazy because that wasn't his reputation going in. I know that he wasn't a favorite, and Jim Carrey really had to lobby to have him be on that in that movie.
Interesting.
But I think there's a lot of classic things that come from that. But essentially for me, the thing that sticks the most,
the toilet scene.
Well, the toilet scene is funny, but not one particular scene, but it's the chemistry between these two.
Yeah.
And how well that works. It's very rare to find that in a modern comedy. Yeah, very
Dunn and Lloyd Christmas.
Yeah, no. So I really just can't think. I don't think I have any other movie on my list that has that kind of synergy between two leads.
Okay.
And that's why I think it's a really strong one to have up there.
Nice.
So I'm curious to see where that one makes the cut.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, okay. Well, I got one another movie about two idiots. One of my favorites, Step Brothers.
Step Brothers. Okay.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I really like Will Ferrell. I think one of the most telling things about Will Ferrell is, remember the cowbell sketch?
I do, of course,
from Saturday Night Live. I mean, one of the funniest things in that sketch is not so much Will Ferrell, but how the other actors are acting around him. And if you watch it closely, you really can't miss it. But it's like Jimmy Fallon and everybody else is just kind of laughing and breaking up, and they can't really finish their lines. And Will Ferrell's keeping it straight the whole time.
Yeah, he's locked in.
So
he's
I mean,
great.
he's funny to me. And then the way he works with John C. Reilly, who's another character who, he's done a lot of pretty serious movies, but he comes into this and, kind of like Dumb and Dumber, just that chemistry works really, really well. There are a lot of jokes in this movie. It does keep me laughing pretty much the whole time. I really enjoy this movie. I don't know how you feel about it, but
I need to watch it again. It's been a few years since I've seen it. I remember just thinking it's hilarious. And of course, those two are super dumbasses. I just remember
the premise is ridiculous, but
yeah, I remember the scene where they make the bunk beds and then they give it a go. It just and how they're like two little kids living in the house. Their parents are just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great things in that movie. I think it's great. I think there are a handful of low points that are just some of the bits really work and some of them don't.
I mean, it falls flat at points, but I mean, the one when they work, they work.
Sure. Yeah. And the premise is pretty silly. So
sure.
Not surprised it made it on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
definitely one of my favorites in the last 10 years, probably.
Okay, so I've got another one to add here, which I don't believe is going to be on your list, but I think that you'll probably understand. And this is, so just to kind of set this particular movie up, this shouldn't have worked. This shouldn't have been as funny as it was for me. Okay. I went through a period of time where I really wasn't watching a whole lot of comedies, and I'm the kind of person that is more of an inner laughter kind of guy. I don't really laugh out loud almost ever. That's just kind of how I am. So when I'm watching something funny at the movie theater and things like that, you rarely get that level of expression from me. And there's only a handful of movies that have done that. One of the more modern ones that did that for me was the Royal Tenenbaums. And,
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that's when I knew that would probably be a little bit of a surprise because I think it's an excellent movie, but I went into it not knowing anything about it, and there's a lot of jacked up things in this movie, but
sure,
for some reason, just some of the bits and the funniness really, really worked for me. Particularly the scene where Owen Wilson is there and he's got those paintings with the guys with the masks behind them, and I don't know what it was.
Like the
maybe
bikers.
It was, yeah. I don't know what the dudes in jeans with no shirt and they're like yanking some guy off his vehicle, or off his motorcycle, and I don't know what it was, but I had such a good time seeing that movie and laughing a lot that it's always kind of stuck with me a little bit.
I really like this pick too. Gene Hackman is wonderful in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he always plays kind of, again, like a serious guy, but he's just kind of a grumpy old man, really horrible father. So I kind of connect to this movie in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
With that, the semi-racial like confrontation he has with Danny Glover is priceless.
Their tension between each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the acting, like it works well again, is like an ensemble. So, and Wes Anderson, I think, is one of the best directors working today. I mean, he just creates these kind of worlds with the set direction and the script. It just all works well together.
Yeah, I think that I really appreciate anybody that has their own style. And in an era where there's so many big budget sequels, which just kind of dominate, like it's rare that you see movies
and remakes.
It's rare to get movies that are unique and one of a kind. And he definitely is somebody who has a lot of stock there. So
yeah,
and I think that this is probably, I know that he had a few prior to this with like Bottle Rocket and come on, remind me the one.
I love Rushmore.
But this one was really the first time to where I kind of got it with what he was trying to accomplish. So I think it was great.
Yeah.
All right.
I really respect this pick. I like it.
Yeah. Bam.
Nice.
All right, what do you got?
All right. Well, this is probably going to be on your list too, but Trading Places.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
Of course it is.
I was holding out for this one.
I know.
Out for this one.
I was waiting to see who would go first.
Maybe one of the first like comedies I just remember being exposed to.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, two racist old white men.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's kind of like it's this familiar scenario, but there's a lot of things in this movie that are very politically incorrect that you honestly could not get away with doing today. And that's why I like this movie so much. It's very brave. It is hilarious. There's just a lot of stuff in here with Eddie Murphy that's so good. As soon as he comes on screen, you're just laughing. Like when you hear him rolling up on his when he's impersonating someone that was injured in Vietnam, you just start laughing without even seeing him yet. It's so funny. I don't know.
We can make it, you and me.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? I was
Hey, I'm sorry.
Bottle of the Chateaubriand.
Yeah, it's great.
But I mean, I just remember seeing it as a kid and just kind of laughing at it, and then even now, it's hilarious, even though it is again politically incorrect. But
on that point, I will say that while there is a lot of racial humor and sexist humor and things like that, I think what at least my takeaway from it is they were trying to draw a contrast also between a lot of current racial tension in the 80s, especially with how African American community was not as welcomed or invited into, let's say, like the Wall Street type of business. And really, it does prove a pretty successful point. And because I remember watching it, I've seen that thing at least 2 to 3 dozen times.
Oh, totally.
I remember watching it maybe 10 years ago, just kind of thinking like, wow, I don't remember this level of racial humor being in there.
There's a ton of it.
But at the same time, I think the message that they were like, it was interesting to kind of see that regardless of somebody's upbringing, intelligence is present. And that's how, when they flipped the two of them, I don't know, I just felt like Eddie Murphy's character actually persevered on both sides of the fence, where
Billy Ray Valentine
was able to achieve a certain level of survival and success on both sides, where Dan Aykroyd's character could not.
That's a good point.
And so it kind of shows that I felt like he was a little bit more wired for perseverance and success.
Yeah.
Where people were spoiled a little bit more. I mean,
nature versus nurture. Yeah,
there you go. And Clarence Beeks, he didn't cut it. But yeah, it's a great one. It's definitely on my list. And
yeah, it's got some. There's Al Franken's in it. Frank Oz is in it. I mean, they got some funny cameos. The guy that played Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, he's in it. He's in like a really quick scene in there. Like a quick little trivia I found on the DVD was one of the Duke brothers, Don Amici. He had to say some foul words, so every time he'd do a scene, he would take like 5 minutes and apologize personally to every single person on the set for the words he was about to say in the scene, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable with it.
No, but they still did a great job.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a gimme, and you'll find it in the top high list if you just Google top comedies of all time. It's a high contender on almost any source.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't seen it, Trading Places is awesome. All right, so that one definitely is on both of our sides.
Nice.
Okay, so speaking of one that is I think going to be on both of our lists, and this is one that we saw together, which is Borat.
Oh yeah,
is that on yours?
It was on like my B list.
Okay, so Borat.
I put Borat / Bruno because I mean they're kind of the same. Bruno takes it a step further in terms of how uncomfortable you're feeling. I think they're both wonderful films. I love them both.
Yeah, I'm more partial to Borat, and not only do I think the character is pretty funny, but I think it does a better job of trying to accomplish what Sacha Baron Cohen was trying to do, and showing just the ugliness of America in a lot of respects. And I think that, in my opinion, is one of the best comedic performances ever, because a comedian in front of a camera with the power of direction and a script and editing can be made to look very good. But put somebody in a real scenario with real people and have them stick to character no matter what is, I think,
in the face of rednecks and
absolutely. I think that is taking a comedic performance to an entirely different level that very few people could do, even some of the most famous comedians of all time. And so I really respect what he was trying to do. And there's just so many crude things about it that just, it's so cringy. And there's so many great lines.
The shit in the bag. And
yeah. He's like, where do you want this? Yeah. And just so many lines and quotables that kind of come out of that one. I don't know. I think that movie is hilarious.
Yeah.
So
I really like this one.
Borat's definitely on there. Okay. We're getting through it. We're winding down. What else you got?
Let's see here. I have this might be my oldest movie on the list. Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles. Yes, that is one that Alan Foster from an NFHC podcast definitely called out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll be honest, I have not seen that in quite some time.
Okay. When do you think you saw it, like when you were younger, or just?
It's had to have been 15 years. I don't know why it hasn't come. I remember I had a lot of fond memories of it.
Sure.
But it's the Mel Brooks, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the glue,
the campfire scene when they're all farting.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a lot that is absent for me from that movie, so I don't have a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I like this movie a lot. I mean, Richard Pryor was a writer in this movie. He was going to be the actor, but they went with someone else because at the time Pryor was a little unknown and he had a massive cocaine problem. So the studio wasn't ready to gamble everything on Richard Pryor starring in the movie. But like Trading Places, you honestly could not make this movie again. It's just kind of a unique in its time movie. It's probably my favorite Mel Brooks movie. I don't like all of his movies, to be honest with you, but I do like this one and Young Frankenstein. So.
Yeah, and it is a unique departure for Mel Brooks. It is not on the nose as much as some of his other ones.
Sure.
Oh, good call.
Yeah, and Gene Wilder's great in this one too.
Blazing Saddles. All right, that wasn't on my list, but you know what is?
What?
Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah, Blues Brothers is on my list. It's actually the first one on my list.
Oh, it's number one. What took you so long?
Well, I mean, it's a random order, so I just kind of wrote everything down. But
gotcha.
Yeah, it's on. I was waiting for you to say it because I knew this is a movie I think we both equally love, much like Trading Places and Holy Grail, where it occupies that spot in our youth. So it's not only nostalgic, but it's very funny to both of us. And I think we had the TV cut of this one, if I remember correctly.
I believe so. Because a lot of things about it is first of all. And I'm not the biggest Belushi fan. I'm not the biggest Aykroyd fan. But they work well together because you're not getting too much of one or the other. I think Aykroyd he works well in films like this or Ghostbusters, Great Outdoors, and things like that. With
other people.
Where he's paired up with other people, and a lot of it is just how he delivers his lines and. His flavor is a little bit.
To me, he's more of like he's more of a really good writer. I mean, he did write Trading Places and he did write this.
Yeah,
but I totally see your point. I mean, he's better around, a more stronger comedic actor. And I agree with you too about Belushi. I mean, a lot of people rave about him. I don't think he was that funny.
Yeah, but he's kind of he's a little bit like the his style. And I know that Chris Farley got a lot of comparisons from him because of how outgoing and things like that, just how crazy that they kind of were. But I don't know. For me, Belushi was always just in a little bit of a different category, but never really resonated with me as a comedic genius or anything, at least from my point of view.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things to like about this movie, though. I mean, there's obviously all the musical guests that pop up. So there's like a lot of kind of, musical breaks and things going on in the movie. there are some, cameos. Steven Spielberg's in a scene. John Candy is in a couple scenes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the music's great and how they integrate it in. But it's also you don't really think of it as a musical, but it really is.
Yeah.
And that's how you know it did a kind of a good job. And also, I've never really liked anything Blues Brothers after this movie. I don't think the John Goodman Blues Brothers stuff is any good.
No.
Jim Belushi stuff is just that's all terrible.
It's all dreck.
Yeah, it's just sucked. This is the only kind of Blues Brothers that works for me.
And it's got like the best car chase ever.
Yes, we talked about that one.
The most ridiculous car chase
on our Baby Driver episode.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, this is up there though. I mean, I heard the script was a lot longer and the car chase was a lot longer in the original script. So who knows?
All right, Blues Brothers. Okay, back to you.
All right. Well, I got another one. I doubt this is on your list. Freddy Got Fingered.
Oh, yeah, I don't even remember. Who the hell? Hold on. Give me a hint. This sounds familiar. Is this a? It sounds like a Tom. What's his name?
Tom Green.
Yeah, it sounds like a Tom Green movie. But
I don't know why I like this movie so much.
Is it Tom
it's
Green?
So reviled, but I like Tom Green a lot. I think when I came home from school every day in high school, it was ate my little snack like a microwave burrito or whatever, and then it was right to Tom Green. And Tom Green was doing a lot of the stuff like
the Tom Green show.
Yeah. Silly. I mean, like a lot of the stuff he was doing was years before like what people like Jackass were doing. Like
that's true.
Taunting the parents and the public stunts. And he was pretty young, so it's like he wasn't that much older than me at the time. So, I mean, the movie is dumb, but watching it again recently, there's a lot of stuff that I find funny, and I think it forms a lot of my just kind of like absurd sense of humor. So, I know this wasn't going to be on your list, but
didn't make the cut. Doesn't surprise me, but I didn't learn something about you. It's interesting that he still has a soft spot in your heart. I mean, I remember a few years ago, I was at a layover at I think a Milwaukee or Minnesota airport, and I ran into him in like the one of the shops there, and I was like, "Hey, standing next to Tom Green." I was like staring at his head for a second, and just then went about my day. I didn't say anything to him, but like,
sure,
he was way taller than I thought he would be. So I was like, "Damn, he's pretty tall."
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He looks good though, and he wasn't doing anything funny. He's just walking around with headphones on.
Sure.
All right, Freddy Got Fingered.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to officially add Team America to the list.
Okay.
Because we did talk about this before, and while I think that South Park, the movie was pretty funny, I don't enjoy it as much anymore. I think I like the show more. But Team America is incredible, and
I'm with you.
It is raunchy and silly.
Yeah.
And
still relevant. I mean, and it's amazing this came out before the interview.
Yeah.
I think this movie skewers, North Korea a lot more than the interview, to be honest with you. I mean, from the first time you see it, it looks like Middle Earth from Lord of the Rings. When they pan into North Korea, it makes it sound like it's some faraway land.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's a funny movie.
And it only Trey Parker, Matt Stone can really pull off something like this, and they did it with puppets, which they leaned into to make some of these scenarios just kind of work.
Yeah.
I always kind of like the scene where he's like, "Yeah, and I thought I saw everything." It's like, you ever seen a man eat his own head? Then you haven't seen everything. Just stupid lines like that. It's just, I don't know. The movie's rad.
Yeah.
Team America. Okay, so we've got 15 on here.
Okay.
And do you feel that there is anything else you want to offer up for consideration in a collective top 10? Because we're going to need to make some cuts.
I think I'm good. I mean, I had a whole bunch on my list. I don't know if you want to mention the other ones, but nothing that I really want to offer up. But I mean, there are some, to me, like some secondary or honorable mention type movies.
So let's call out a few of those because I know I could be forgetting some that should have some consideration.
Okay.
On Twitter at 20wordmr for 20-word movie reviews. Some of their favorites were Kingpin, Me, Myself, Irene, Kung Fu Hustle, and Anchorman. And I agree with all those. Kung Fu Hustle was a little bit of a surprise because that is actually a pretty funny movie. But
it is.
That was another one that just I didn't think of at the time. But they also called out Mindhorn. Do you know anything about that? Mindhorn. Yeah, not Mindhead, but
Mindhorn.
Mindhorn. Yeah. Dumb British humor. Check it out. So I haven't either, but at 20-word MR. Thanks for the heads up.
Okay.
We're gonna look into Mindhorn.
Yeah, Mindhorn.
But Kingpin, that was the one.
That one.
Yeah, when they told me Kingpin, I was like, damn it, I didn't write Kingpin down. That movie is incredible.
Yeah, I love Kingpin. I actually like it more than Dumb and Dumber, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna add Kingpin here. I'm just writing it down, not moving it anywhere. But that is definitely one. Over at our Facebook, Dougie Rayfeld there called out Spaceballs. Arthur, starring Dudley Moore, was another one that he loves. I know
that's a good classic comedy.
It was funny because I was listening to a recent podcast that Kevin Smith did, where he was talking about Macaulay Culkin. Well, he was talking with Macaulay Culkin on a podcast that he has called like Funny Ears or Rabbit Ears or something like that. Anyways, he was saying that as a kid, and they were asking him how Macaulay Culkin like got influenced for did movies like Uncle Buck and Home Alone, and he said he drew a lot of inspiration from movies like Arthur. Watched it all the time.
Interesting.
I don't know if I've seen it or not. I really feel like I have.
It's been a long time,
but yeah, that was just. I thought that was a couple classics there from Dougie, and of course, Me, Myself, Irene, Bad Santa, Tommy Boy, Blazing Saddles.
Bad Santa was on my list.
Yeah, that Alan Foster called out over on the Facebook as well. So thank you, Alan.
Nice.
Yeah. There's some good ones out there. David from NFHC also highlighted Big Lebowski. Walter Grace called out Old School, which is another one that I figured was gonna come around there. It was on my list, but it didn't make my top 10.
Right.
But I do think that is probably one of the better ones from that cluster or era of movies.
Yes.
So where do you think something like Anchorman sits within that? Because that was probably the most quoted movie for like 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think I remember watching it with you, and I think for about the first 20 minutes, and this is my memory. I don't know if you remember it differently, but when you were in Berkeley, we were watching it.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember like the first 20 minutes or so, we're like, what is this? Like, what's going on? And then it just started getting like really hilarious to us.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember it that way or not, but it's kind of a weird movie. I mean, in terms of the humor, but it is very accessible. I like it. I don't think it's his strongest work. That's why I picked Step Brothers. I think that's probably one of his better works. Anchorman 2 was stupid. Not stupid as in stupid funny, but just plain stupid.
It sucked.
Yeah.
And it basically was just trying, like, there's no need for that movie to be made because it didn't have anything new to say.
I mean, they rehashed that like network fight again. That was that was uncalled for.
Yeah, other than Harrison Ford being in it, I mean, I can't think of a whole lot. And and Anchorman was definitely on my list there, but I just didn't feel that it held up enough to crack into the top 10 because while I think Will Ferrell is excellent in that movie, the thing for me is it almost relied too much on the clever writing. But
sure.
But I think that the true weakness of that movie is the ensemble cast was just not as good as Will Ferrell was. And
yeah, I don't think so either.
I really think, I mean, what was what's her name? Christina Applegate. She was okay in the role, but I didn't really feel like she added a whole lot that could have worked for anybody. Steve Carell was pretty good. Paul Rudd was decent with what he had to work with, but the other guy,
weather guy,
I can't remember his name. I should know his name.
I know his name in the movie is Chip Kine.
Yeah, I thought that he was just a little too over the top. It didn't really seem
a little much. Yeah,
didn't really seem as strong as some of the other performances. So I think that's where the weakness in that movie is. They got good lines, but the execution could have been a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it recently, but I'm sure if I watched it again, it would be all right. It's okay, but
yeah. Well, what else is out there? Anything else you rattle off a couple that were on your honorable mentions here?
I'll give you the rest on my list. Bad Santa. Spinal Tap.
Okay.
Observe and Report.
Oh, okay.
Which came really close for me. I really like that movie. Hamlet 2.
Oh, yeah. Steve Coogan?
Yes.
Yeah.
So funny. And Hamlet 2 is written by the people who wrote Team America.
Oh,
it's
okay.
got, kind of similar sense of humor. Something About Mary.
That was a good one.
And this was a tight one for me, but I think Fargo is funny. I mean, it's really an unintentional comedy to me, but I think it's funny. It's funny in a really dark way, but I don't know what it is. It's just kind of, there's certain parts of that movie that make it hilarious to me. And I can't really nail down why. I just think it is.
Yeah. A lot of it is just what your sense of humor is and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So for me, there's a few more I had on here, and I'm really torn. So this isn't easy, especially when we're trying to come up with a shared list.
10's hard.
Yeah. I had Coming to America.
Yeah, it's a good one. Zamunda.
Yeah, Zamunda. King Jaffe. The Kingpin was on there. Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh yeah.
And I know that
Napoleon Dynamite's so good because it does what it does without any like raunchy scenes or explicit language.
Yeah, it's like a Jerry Seinfeld of comedy movies where
sure.
But I think that it's just so quirky and odd is why it works.
Yeah.
But it only really works there. But if you watch it, it kind of grew on me. I didn't really like it the first time I saw it because I was like, this is stupid. But then after a while, I kind of appreciated it.
Stupid.
Yeah, like Uncle Rico's what makes that movie for me. How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountains? The just the dumb lines they gave.
Like you would even know.
Yeah.
Kip.
I have Ghostbusters.
Okay.
And which it has a lot of funny lines, but I don't really see it as a solid comedy.
The new Ghostbusters?
I haven't seen it. I don't want to taint my vision of the original.
We're not trying to lose viewers here.
No. I haven't seen it. I heard that for new people they may enjoy it. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I had Zoolander on here, which I thought was going to be just beyond terrible, so I avoided seeing it, and then I happened to see it one time, and I was like, I don't know why, but it was funny. It worked for me.
The scene with the gas, with the gas station.
Yeah, I know.
That's one of the best scenes ever. I'm sorry, but
it's just. I think it's a funny one.
It is.
And then just a couple more. I had The Jerk on here because I think it is a great comedic performance. But again, it does get a little tiring. Little Shop of Horrors was another one for Steve Martin that I had that I remember liking a lot as a kid, but then just kind of watching it as an older and was like, it's kind of dumb.
Doesn't hold up.
Doesn't hold up. And 40-Year-Old Virgin was another one that I really enjoyed, but again, it doesn't hold up for me.
A little long.
Yeah, a little long. And
I mean, a good comedy should be between like an hour and a half, hour and 45.
Yeah, you need to keep it. I agree. And the last one, which I just recently watched, was Good Morning Vietnam.
That's a good one.
And it was
probably one of his best roles, I think.
Yeah, I would. It showcases Robin Williams' talent, but it does get a little bit into the political commentary quite a bit as the movie progresses, and
a little heavy.
You start to lose like the shtick of being the funny radio guy with all his references. Kind of wears off, and it starts to morph more into this. What information do we report to the army and all that kind of stuff. There's a strong political narrative within it.
Sure.
But I think for the screen time that Robin Williams does get, he's almost always funny in it. Except for that scene where he gets all serious with his Vietnamese friend who was from the Viet Cong, and they're having their little moment there. It was kind of like, all right, it's a little what happened to the funny movie I was marketed.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Okay. So before we put a lid on this one, you feel pretty comfortable with what we've got selected so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's run through it real quick. We got Cable Guy, Tropic Thunder, Monty Python, Big Lebowski, Vacation, Planes, Trains, Automobiles, Dumb and Dumber, Step Brothers, Royal Tenenbaums, Trading Places, Borat, Blazing Saddles, Blues Brothers, Freddy Got Fingered, and Team America. All right, so we need to cut off 5 of these. Now, anything you see is just kind of going like, there's no way that's going to be in the top 10 or should get bumped out.
Okay, I think I could take off Freddy Got Fingered.
Okay, you're pulling that back. Sorry, Freddy, you just got fingered. All right,
it's not working. I can take off Borat. I think.
You think you could lose Borat?
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about that. I thought it was funny. I'm more of a fan of the show, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but
I think it's pretty strong. I think it's pretty strong. For me, so let's come back to that one. Let's see where that one sits.
Put that on ice for a minute.
For me, I can't get behind Blazing Saddles.
Okay,
and that's just because I haven't seen that one as much. So I'm going to defer to you if you really feel like that needs to be in the top 10.
I don't think it needs to be in the top 10.
Okay,
we can cut that one.
All right, so down to 13.
All right.
I would probably say we've got 2 Jim Carrey, Cable Guy, Dumb and Dumber. I would probably pull back Cable Guy and keep Dumb and Dumber.
I feel the other way, but okay.
Oh, you do? Yeah, I think that Cable Guy is great, but outside of the lines and scenarios.
Not strictly a comedy at times, huh?
Yeah, but Jim Carrey is the only thing carrying that movie, where in Dumb and Dumber, there's a lot more carrying that movie.
I got you.
But I'm really fond of Cable Guy. I would rather watch that personally than Dumb and Dumber, but I think I respect Dumb and Dumber as a comedy a little bit more.
I'll concede to you on that one. We could lose Cable Guy.
All right. We're making progress here. See?
All right.
Okay, so we're down to 12.
Okay.
Okay, so
what are you thinking?
All right, well let's reverse engineer this a little bit. What do you think top 3 on your list? Name something that you think should be in the top 3.
Definitely Tropic Thunder.
Okay.
Big Lebowski.
Okay.
And Trading Places.
Okay, Trading Places. Okay, so let's shift
that would be like my personal top 3.
Your personal top 3. All right. Now, so then when we're looking at this, let's see. I'll
kind of attack one of yours really quick. I think Tenenbaums is funny. But, again, I don't think it operates strictly as a comedy.
I would agree.
So I don't know if I want to put this, because there are some, really crazy, like, dramatic scenes in this film.
It doesn't compete with a lot of these other ones. It's kind of in that Fargo territory.
But I love it. I mean, as a comedy, it works well, but that's kind of not, like, really what it operates as. If you know what I'm saying.
Good call.
Yeah.
All right. Now looking at this list, I can kind of get behind all of these as being a top 10, but for me, Planes, Trains is kind of like a 12 or 13.
Okay. And I mean, if I had to use the same argument with Planes, Trains as I did with Royal Tenenbaums, or a similar argument.
Sure.
Not always funny. I mean, because the jokes aren't coming straight at you like a lot of these other movies are.
That's
so
true.
I think we can move Planes, Trains down a little bit lower. I think we can lose that one.
Okay, so looking at this top 10, and we don't necessarily have to get it 1 through, we're not going to debate between 6 and 7 and stuff, but it would be nice to tighten it up a little bit. Team America, where do you think that sits in a list like this?
Which one?
Team America.
Well, I already told you my top 3.
So do
you think Team America probably at a 4 or 5?
Do you think it's funnier than Big Lebowski?
No.
It doesn't get easy, right?
It does, yeah.
Okay. So then what's funnier to you, Step Brothers or Dumb and Dumber?
To me, I would have to say Dumb and Dumber. The objective here.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think is funnier, Vacation or Blues Brothers?
Vacation funnier.
Okay. So do you think Trading Places is funnier than Tropic Thunder?
Definitely not. Tropic Thunder is probably my number 1.
Yeah.
I actually no, it is my number one.
Okay.
My number one.
Now, as great as Monty Python is, do you think it's funnier than like a Big Lebowski or a Team America?
I think it belongs a little lower on the list because it's really not going to be appreciated by everybody that watches it. You know, I'd say if you show that movie to 10 people, maybe 4 or 5 of them will really kind of get it.
Sure, but this is our list, so we're not picking.
Yeah,
we're not being objective here.
I wouldn't put it as high as some of these other ones, but it's definitely a top 10.
Okay. So right now we're looking at Tropic Thunder is number 1, Trading Places, Big Lebowski, Team America, Vacation, Dumb and Dumber, Step Brothers, Monty Python, Borat, Blues Brothers. And, you know, looking at how this one is, I kind of feel that movies like, for me, like Vacation, Team America, Dumb and Dumber are a little funnier to me than The Big Lebowski.
Okay.
Because I really like how The Big Lebowski is. Its objective isn't to be strictly a comedy.
Yeah.
And in the same
more so than some of the other
notion,
ones, but okay.
In the same notion as like Dumb and Dumber or Vacation is like we have different types of comedies here. So it's kind of hard. It's hard from an apples to apples point of view. But I mean, I'm okay with where it sits because I really respect that movie and it deserves all the credit.
Sure.
So I'm okay with where it's at. Let's let this one marinate for a few minutes.
Okay.
And we'll come back to this after we kind of go through some of our TV shows. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that works. We can come back to this at the end.
All right. So now that we're done with the movies, we're talking about TV shows. This was a little bit harder for me, and I think it's just because I don't watch a lot of TV comedy. The sitcoms and stuff don't really stick with me because you can tell there's not as much craft going into them.
That laugh track too.
Yeah, the laugh track. But I think that within the era of Netflix and some HBO stuff, that's definitely changed a bit. So we'll try to come out. We'll go 5 each, and we'll try to come out with like a top 5 of this one. You want to kick this one off?
Yeah. Well, this one of my favorite shows of all time, and it's still going on, and it just seems to be getting better and better. South Park.
Oh yes, South Park. That one's on my list as well.
Yeah. I mean, I really like this show because it went from being like a construction paper thing, kind of crude, to being, you know, what it is now. But they're still cranking them out. There's a really good like documentary about how they make this show and the things they have to go through with standards and practices to get the stuff on the air. And they do every episode when it's in a season, like in a week. Mm-hmm. So unlike The Simpsons, they can still keep everything like fairly timely, which they do.
Mm-hmm.
So it works, obviously. It's great satire, but I mean, honestly, it's just a lot of stuff over the years. It's just very memorable to me. Very, very funny. Not a lot of people find this show funny that I talk to, but I love it. It's probably my favorite show.
Yeah, South Park is solid because it's aged well, and I really appreciate how they found, you know, Trey and Matt found themselves in a situation to where you had a huge audience, and then the story started transcending beyond, just very much like The Simpsons, started transcending beyond the characters. So, for example, you remember how The Simpsons started off, and it was all about Bartman, dude, and eat my shorts, and it was this, and then it somewhere along the lines they realized like, no, Homer's the superstar, and it started becoming about Homer, which it really wasn't intended to be that way. At least that's how the views go, and I think that for South Park. It was a lot about these kids, but then the story and the universe started expanding. I mean, I think we might even share the same favorite character with Stan's dad. What's his name?
Randy.
Randy. Yeah, I think
Randy Marsh is so funny.
He's the best.
Every time he does something stupid, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like those marginal characters on the show are the
best. I'm willing to bet that you probably picked the best one right there.
Yeah.
So another one that I'll add to the list that follows up behind that would be The Office.
Okay, and, not on my list, but I do like it.
I think it's just because this is one of those ones that I could always watch it and enjoy the comedic performances quite a bit. When's the last time you've seen it?
maybe about 6 months. And I mean, I don't really like, I had never really watched like every single week it was on. A lot of it was through like binge watching.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really, I like that one, even though it wasn't on my list. I just wasn't really thinking of it. I like that one. And I also like the British version of The Office.
Mm-hmm.
So I like them both.
Yeah. I would say that if it makes the cut, it's going to be on the lower half. And that's simply because somewhere around season 6 or like pretty much when Michael leaves the show and they start leaning a lot more into Andy's character is when it really started to kind of lose it for me. And that's, he came out with the Hangover and what am I spacing on his name? Come on. What's his name? Guy plays Andy. What's his name?
I gotta look it up. I forget his name too.
Yeah. I don't know. I shouldn't be forgetting it, but so once the Hangover came out.
Ed Helms.
Ed Helms, and he really was becoming the lead in that show. But I just really didn't feel his character. His character was a little bit much. But why I think The Office is really such a strong contender is because of everybody for me was a no name heading into that show, and they own their characters and the writing for them. I think better than most comedies. So not only do I feel that Michael Scott's going to be Steve Carell's best role he ever has, but even with John Krasinski and Rainn Wilson, Jim, Dwight,
Creed.
Yeah, Creed, that dude. Yeah, Kevin. I mean,
that's one of my favorite characters.
All those characters are just perfectly cast and perfectly executed. And is very, very original, considering that it is the American version.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I do like this one. I think I want to keep this one on the list, too.
It really works for me in so many ways. I love that show.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 2 on there. Throw another one up. What do you got?
All right, I got Chappelle's Show.
You know what? I spaced on this one.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like with sketch comedy, another one that I would probably include, well, I'll talk about it if it comes up again, but I was never like a huge SNL fan. I just don't think a lot of it works a lot of the time. I think the era that we were, and I mean, the first couple of years of SNL, like going back and watching it now, I just don't really get it. Even though you recognize all those faces, I just don't really get a lot of it. And I think the era that we really appreciated SNL was like, Phil Hartman, Adam Sandler, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
I mean, Chappelle's Show, though, he just took the sketch comedy thing into a whole different direction. I mean, your first episode, you have a black, blind, white supremacist, like right out of the gate. And that kind of defines your show. It's going to be something special. And he really, really, knocked it out of the park with his show.
Yeah. And that's interesting. You
highly
mentioned
publicized couple ways he did it, but I think it's still funny. I'll go back and watch it. Sometimes I'm just thinking of certain sketches and I'll go back and watch those too.
Well, I appreciate that Chappelle had something to say, and he was definitely calling out, a lot of the bigotry and hate that was going on in the country, and he was able to address those and kind of get embraced by a much larger audience, and he took advantage of that. And I think that even in his more politically charged stuff, like there's still a strong message that was kind of rooted into American culture. And I just love seeing, especially because comedy is one of the best ways to address a lot of these issues and what's wrong in the country. And
that's all. I mean, that's always been, throughout history, that's kind of like humor will always be that kind of a universal language.
Absolutely.
Where, you could kind of, I don't want to say dumb it down, but you can make it a little more digestible for a lot of people. If you make it funny in a way that you make people think too. And I think that's why this show does so well, is because it does make you think about a lot of these issues.
Yeah, you can address sensitive
relevant
issues
at the time and still relevant.
Absolutely, you're addressing sensitive issues, but you don't really know. I think it's because your guard is down. You're ready to be entertained, and you might see something on its face value and kind of laugh at it, but then behind it, you really kind of see, the absurdity of what it's making fun of, and that allows you to see something like, racism really is ridiculous and should not be an issue. but it is, and it is a big problem. And he's able to tackle very sensitive issues like that by shining a light on a scenario that you go into. You go, oh, it's funny, but there's a big message behind it, and that's what I really enjoy about that.
Wait
show.
a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very intelligent.
Yeah. So, and he really carries that well. Excellent writing. That wasn't on my list. I'm a little ashamed that it wasn't. So okay, so let's move on. I think I have a couple on here that are not going to be on your list.
Okay.
One of them is Modern Family.
No.
And have you
never really got into that show?
And it's one of the ones that
I don't know why, but
yeah,
maybe I just couldn't stand to see Al Bundy doing something different. I mean, to me, he's always going to be Al Bundy.
He is, but he's great. This, I think, not only does it just clean up at the Emmys or the Golden Globes, and is a very, very well received show, but on the surface level, you might look at it and kind of go like, this isn't necessarily something that's going to connect with everybody, but it is so clever. It is so well written. And
I'm not going to say I never liked it when I watched it. I just never really got into it, like, wanting to keep watching it.
Yeah, really give it another run or another shot, because I think that it in a lot of similar ways with like Chappelle's show. It's not as politically charged, but it does definitely highlight a lot of biases and stereotypes, and that's essentially what it's kind of making fun of in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the situations and the scenarios and things like that those individual characters go through has always been pretty entertaining for me.
Right.
I'm just always amazed by how clever it is. It's just so well written for a comedy that falls on the slight sitcom territory. It is a new approach because it has the elements of The Office. So to where you're interviewing the characters are doing their things, and then you interview them and they kind of talk about certain things. Like they're aware that the cameras are there, but they're not when the show is happening. So where like The Office, you're seeing people look at the camera a lot and nodding, and they're just acknowledging that there's a camera crew here. You don't really get that when they're in their various scenarios or whatever the story is for the episode. And then you use the way that they transition and set things up is through some of that discussion. Right. And it pulls a little.
I mean, do you think those shows are kind of, I wouldn't say lampooning, but kind of skewering like reality television in a way?
Absolutely.
And making it a little more intelligent. Yeah.
And that is kind of because each character to a certain extent is embodying a certain stereotype. And so when you're watching it, you have to kind of get past that individual actor or whatever, which I think is a great cast that works. Some of them I prefer more than others. But in the end, it's so smart and so well done that it's really hard to kind of pick away with. So anybody I think that appreciates good comedy can definitely see why the show is as successful as it is.
That's a very strong case, Sean.
Oh yeah. All right. You're up.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. So there we go. That is a great show, and I'll admit that I am way behind. I know that Matt over at the NFHC podcast is just man, we're just really calling out those guys.
Yeah,
my buddy Matt loves that show, and he's always quoting it, and I feel like a douche for not knowing it as well as he does.
Oh man, it's so good. And I mean, it's like a lot of stuff we're talking about. It's funny on a lot of different levels. I mean, there's obviously like a lot of silliness, but then there's also some really dark stuff and some black comedy and, just a lot of like social commentary as well.
Good pick. I knew it was going to be on here, and I would have added it if I could give a stronger case for it. So I'm a little embarrassed that I can't.
And it's got Danny DeVito, so can't go wrong. It goes back to Twins, right?
And when did he come in on that show? Because he wasn't there initially.
Yeah, he came in on second season. So, first season was good. I didn't really get into the show, though, honestly, until he started showing up. He was Uncle Frank.
Okay.
So, yeah, that character started showing up. But then everybody else, it's a really good ensemble cast. The way they work together. A lot of weirdness, like I said, a lot of silliness, but it's funny.
At times, it kind of reminds me of like a Family Guy or something, but acting.
Yeah,
with just some of the silliness or the scenarios. I don't know.
Sure,
I kind of just see a similar vein of humor there.
Yeah.
Okay, Always Sunny. Yeah, that's a give me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so aside from recent issues, given the current state that Hollywood is in hot water for being shitty towards females, I still can't ignore how great Louis' show is. And it is on my list.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to blacklist it because Louis was wound up being a bit creepy. And
sure.
But regardless, the content itself, I think, holds up and stands for itself.
Now, have you seen Lucky Louie?
His older version that was on HBO? Yeah. It's been a while.
That's a good one too, though. But I mean, I do like his other show or his newer show better because it allowed him to stretch out a lot more in terms of making a quality show. Just in every aspect.
Yeah, it's interesting because when Louis got exposed for exposing himself and just the nature which he did it, I can't say that I wasn't surprised given his type of sense of humor. Definitely was disappointed.
He's a creepy dude.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed, and because he is a comedic genius. He was able to do something in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years that most comedians can't do.
Right.
And you obviously can see the strength of him with his writing and the scenarios. But I think in hindsight, you're looking kind of back at it, it does lose a little bit of his luster, just kind of knowing the source of, a lot of his humor and things like that.
But I mean, he took a pay cut on this show to have complete creative control.
Yeah. And he edited it
so he
himself
owns
on his laptop. Yeah. He really was it.
I mean,
I really respect the craft and stuff that went in the show, although the artist has some work to do.
That's a good pick.
All right, what do you got?
I got a couple gimmies here. Seinfeld.
Oh yes.
I mean, I really don't have to argue this one. It's just
it's on my list George as well.
Yeah, I mean, it just again, like a lot of these other shows, there's so many memorable episodes. And later on, you find out it's all like, Larry, it's all out of Larry David's head. So I'll do 2 and 1 here. I'd also throw out Curb because Curb's kind of like an R-rated Seinfeld to me.
Yeah.
A lot of the same kind of like ideas and premises all from Larry David. So, and they both work really well, really quirky stories, interesting characters all around. Everybody in Seinfeld, you really don't like all of them. Not people you really hang out with, but you do kind of revel in what they go through.
That's true. Yeah. And I had Seinfeld on my list as well. Just because it's one of the few comedic sitcoms that I thought was just very clever, a show about nothing, but it's about something. And it people either like it or they don't. I find that people have less fondness for it the older it gets. If you didn't watch it in real time or when it was coming out, like you're not really gonna. It's a tough sell because of just the type of humor, and I think Jerry himself is probably the weakest link on the show. Although
he's not a good actor.
No, he's not, and George Costanza is, in my opinion, what makes that show.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, once you get to know Larry through Curb, it's like all the characters on Seinfeld, maybe except for Kramer, all kind of embody Larry, but it's Costanza, it's George that is the most like a Larry David.
That's true. Yeah.
Short, stocky, bald guy with the glasses.
I know. So that's a good one that's on there. I've only got one more, and this isn't one that's going to be really competitive, but I want to just kind of call it out as a personal favorite, and that was Flight of the Conchords. And
nice, and I do like that show too.
I think the reason why is it's very similar to like Tenacious D type of format, but the difference I think is it's a little bit more clever, less of a gut punch, and very quirky. So I felt that it had its own originality.
In between were a little stronger too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A little bit better of a narrative. and Jack Black can get a little tiring after a while. Although I love him.
Yeah.
After a while, you're kind of just like, all right, enough.
Come on, dude.
I know.
Rein it in a little bit there, buddy.
Yeah, rein it in.
You get it.
But for me, I just think it's I like that type of dry humor. Anything that's really dry and sarcastic, very subtle. It's not going for the joke, but it's funny with the acting and delivery.
Sure.
I really like that one.
Okay.
All right, so we got 9. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there?
I'll just rattle off a couple more. Ali G Show.
Okay.
That's where we first met Borat.
Yeah, that's where we met Borat.
Jackass.
Oh, good call out.
Mr. Show.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you added that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites of all time. Just kind of remember having like VHS tapes of that show because it came out on HBO. That's where we first meet Bob Odenkirk, who's gone on to amazing things, and David Cross, who's done likewise.
Sure.
And I mean, we've had VHS tapes, and then eventually got DVDs. But it was always interesting to like kind of turn people onto it. Like I was turned onto it. It's always kind of funny to turn people onto it. Kind of like an American Monty Python, though. Not everyone's going to get it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
A lot of crazy references, very inane and absurd at times. But one of my favorites. Last one I had on here was Eastbound and Down. And Danny McBride is, even though he always plays kind of the same character, he's one of the best.
Yeah, I like his style.
Yeah.
Vice Principals, he's great in.
Right.
But yeah, okay, Eastbound and Down, that surprises me a little bit. Not that it's on the list, it's just wasn't on my radar, but I need to go back through and give that one some more attention. Okay, so we've got 13 here. Right now, we got South Park, Office, Chappelle Show, Modern Family, Always Sunny, Louis, Seinfeld, Curb, Flight of the Conchords, Ali G, Jackass, Mr. Show, Eastbound and Down. So I think that we can definitely cut off the last 5 from from Flight of the Conchords, Ali G, Jackass, Mr. Show, and Eastbound.
Yeah.
So that narrows us down to 8.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think out of these 8, we're looking at South Park, Office, Chappelle, Modern Family, Always Sunny, Louis, Seinfeld, Curb? We got to cut out 3.
Okay.
Anything that you can't get behind?
Well, I mean, I think you'd have to go with either Seinfeld or Curb, like lose one of those. I don't know how you feel, but the funnier one to me would be Curb.
I would agree. I think it holds up.
I mean,
a lot
Seinfeld's
better.
is kind of I think Seinfeld's is going to be on everybody's list, but I mean, this is our list, so
it's an easy one.
I mean, to me, I think Curb is, I think Curb is more deserving of a top 5 in this case.
Okay, I would go with that. I can back that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally fine conceding with something like with Modern Family, although I think that if you're to look at number wise or population, it's definitely pretty up there. But I think it's a little bit more accessible for general America.
Right.
I definitely think South Park is going to be number 1. I don't know. That's just my guess.
Totally. Yeah.
That show.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm. I think The Office should definitely be in the top 5.
Okay, I agree with that.
Chappelle Show is one I'm on the fence with because we're really only working off of 2 seasons here, but it is 2 strong seasons.
Right.
Always Sunny, I personally can't back, but I'm not going to really dispute because from what I've watched and what I've seen, I definitely can recognize why it's such a strong contender. I would be okay with dropping Louis off. Although I do think it is one of the best out there. It's not for most, and not every episode for me I think is great. I think there's some strong ones and there's some other ones that don't quite hit as much. So I think as an ensemble series, it's very strong, but a little unpredictable. So it could be a
couple of storylines didn't really do it for me.
Yeah, it could be hit or miss. So let's back that out. I would say we can lose Modern Family since you haven't really seen that one, and the most recent seasons haven't been as solid. So we're looking at South Park, Office, Chappelle Show, Always Sunny, and Curb. What do you?
I'm okay with that.
Do you? What do you think? Of any of those you think are a higher rank than The Office?
If I had to go with one higher than The Office, I'd say Sunny. That's my personal though.
Do you think Always Sunny is better than Chappelle's Show?
I think so, just because of because of the run.
Sure, there's not enough content there.
Yeah.
Do you think Curb is better than Chappelle's Show?
Yes.
Okay. So then that makes it a little bit easier. Now, if we have Office slated at number 2, do you think Sunny or Curb should sit above that?
I'm okay with The Office being number 2. I think that's a strong show. One, definitely I need to get into a lot more, but I would leave it where it is.
Yeah, I feel good about this.
Yeah.
All right, so the final roster: South Park, Office, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Chappelle's Show. Our top 5 favorite comedy TV shows of all time. Let's take a hop back over to our top 10 movies and see if there's any other fiddling around we want to do before we stick a fork in it and call it done. Okay, so we're starting off with Tropic Thunder, Trading Places, Big Lebowski, Team America, Vacation, Dumb and Dumber, Step Brothers, Monty Python, Borat, Blues Brothers. I personally, I know it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I personally think that
I think the sticking point here was Lebowski, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I really think that Dumb and Dumber, Step Brothers, Vacation, like, I don't really think we could put these in a definitive order and say, like, this is it. Because they're very different flavors from different eras.
Right.
But I feel pretty strong saying that Tropic Thunder, Trading Places, and Big Lebowski are a good top 3. I really enjoy those ones. Team America and Vacation seemed very normal to me. Dumb and Dumber, absolutely. Movies like Monty Python, Borat, Blues Brothers are more on the bottom tier, maybe because Blues Brothers isn't just a straight comedy. That's a very, and I think Borat's just from a comedic performance alone. I can't not laugh when I watch that movie, so it does well for me. And we got the silly ones with Dumb and Dumber and Step Brothers kind of right in the middle. I don't know. I feel pretty good about it.
I feel the same. I like this list.
Okay, sweet. Well, there you have it. Thanks again to everybody who participated at the Harsch Review on Twitter, gave us your feedback over at our Facebook page as well. Had a lot of fun, just kind of really thinking about these ones out there and trying to figure out what is the Harsch Review's top comedies. And I know that Ryan and I we're pretty close on most of these. When I look at this top list, there's Ryan added Step Brothers, I added Dumb and Dumber and Borat, and everything else we both had. So
yeah,
that's what,
a lot in common.
70%.
Yeah,
almost. Yeah, so pretty close.
Crazy, huh?
Good.
We didn't reveal the list. I mean, we started kind of on that vein, and then we said, okay, let's not do that. I think in the future we need to do this a little more with different genres. No,
absolutely, absolutely. It was
action movies, and
it was a lot of fun kind of going through, and we wanted to kind of change it up a little bit. So anyways, that's going to be our episode for today. Again, thanks a lot, guys, over at Twitter at the Harsch Review. If you want to stop by, we'd like to have some of these conversations with you guys. We also opened up a Patreon account, patreon.com/Harsch Review. The links are on our website. And if you don't know, it's basically your way to kind of show your support for the show. You can donate $1 a month, and it's automated. It's very easy and simple, and you can kind of, I don't want to sound like a pledge drive or anything. We're not soliciting.
What are we raising money for?
We'd love to get Ryan and some new mic and equipment, but it's not necessary. Really, for us is trying to offset hosting fees and production costs and stuff like that. So at some point in time, if we're able to have that be crowdfunded, that would be incredible. But again, we just love having it. Love your guys' support and feedback. So if you feel like supporting the show and pledging for the Harsch Brothers, head over to our website, harschreview.com, and you'll see the links on the page. Again, this was a lot of fun. Nice job, Ryan.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. You too.
Yeah, thanks. We killed it. Being a brother is awesome.
The definitive list.
Yeah, the definitive list. Notice how Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and Twins didn't make the cut, but they were some of the early early ones. They
hold
a
special place in our heart, don't they?
Some shitty movie theater up in Crestline or somewhere, Green Valley. I don't know where it was at. Where was that?
I think it might still be up there. I might do a little research on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that was a good time. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again, and we will see you next week. My name is Sean.
And I'm Ryan.
All right, have a good week.
See you later.